So you've been involved in the tech space, Alessandro, for over 20 years. What made you decide to get into that space? How did you find it?
Well, first of all, I grew up in Italy, and I basically grew up in technology also. Not that Italy is famous for technology, but my dad used to spend his whole career working for probably the only big technology. Hi. Oh, audio.
We,
Check, 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 check. All right.
What are you using? What number?
one.
We check.
Alessandro, can we use some of that technology experience right now and get this situation cleared up?
Yeah, I'll roll up my sleeves in a second, and but I think we have a very valid, competent help here. So, but so just to continue, my dad used to work for Olivetti, which was basically the only technology company in Italy, and he spent his whole career there. And I remember since I was a little kid that he used to come home after long trips to the Far East of Japan with gadgets like mini cameras and other stuff. I always was involved in technology. I always was interested in these little devices, and then eventually, when it came time to go to college, by that time we were in the States. The only thing that really interested me was really engineering. So I went to engineering school. I studied computer science. Then I graduated. I spent a few years developing software. Then I went to business school, and after that, I knew that I wanted to stay in technology. I did not want to go into banking and consulting like my peers from business school, but I wanted to stay in technology, working with technology companies. I eventually wanted to get into venture capital. So I already knew right after business school, and when I left B school, I went to AT&T, and then eventually I co-founded AT&T Ventures, which was a venture arm of AT&T at the time, about 20 years ago. So that's how I got into it.
Well, in reading the book, it just struck me how much of both Web 1.0, Silicon Alley, the old Silicon Alley, and New York Digital you've lived through. What made you decide to write the book?
Well, the book happened by chance almost. My co-author, Maria Teresa Cometto, is an Italian journalist. She writes for the largest daily in Italy. She writes about business and technology. And my wife and I were having dinner with her and her husband, who was also a journalist, a couple of years ago. And I used to speak. She would call me almost every week about articles she was writing and to understand trends about technology. So at some point during the dinner, I said, well, we speak so often, maybe we should write a book about technology. And she looks at me and goes, okay. And I thought, oh, shit, what did I get myself into? So I said, so we decided we would get together for a brainstorming session. And I said, okay, I'll come and bring some ideas. So I brought a list of ideas. And of course, I started going through the list. Of course, the first two on the list, I remember, one was about cloud computing, and the second one was about big data. And she and her husband looked at me and they told me, you're crazy. Let's try something that's a little bit more fun and more entertaining and people want to read if you want to write a book. And down on the list there was something about the New York tech community, and that's where the light went off, and we thought that was perfect because effectively, I've been in New York 2/3 of my life, and they have been in New York for almost since 2000. So they actually have been through some traumatic periods in the city. So they felt that they were New Yorkers as well. And we thought it was a good thing to do, not only because of the history, not only because there were no books written, but it was also a way to give back to the city and to the community. So that's why we did that.
Now, how did you decide who to interview for the book? Not that I'm feeling left out.
Well, I thought I left left you a message, but you never returned. It was a little bit. I mean, we came up with a list of people, and the list of people was a mix of old timers, so people that have been around in the '90s, and since I was there, I knew a lot of people. Like Fred is one of them, but Howard Morgan and Mark Stallman and people like that, and then a mix of new people, both investors and entrepreneurs from post 2000, and then people from the local government and yeah, I think we did interview one attorney and a couple of other folks. The thing is, we came up with a list. We did about 50 plus interviews of more than an hour each. Actually, one person took 2 sessions, and we couldn't even ask all the questions. We'll let you guess who it is in a second if you want. But I don't think David.
Maybe in the Q&A we'll try and guess.
I don't think David Rose is in the audience, is he? For those of you who know David Rose, you'll understand that he likes to talk, and he's a great guy. And but we didn't want to spend. We came up with a list of 50, 55, but we could have come up with a list of 300. And at some point, we needed to have a list that was concise enough that we could actually go through it in a few months, as opposed to a year. And that's how. So plus, you always want to leave some dry powder for the sequel.
Oh, I think that's the question on everyone's mind. Will there be a sequel to Tech in the City?
We don't know yet. We might do a. The story is also in great part the story of the last few years in New York is also the story of Mayor Bloomberg and his contribution to the city, to the acceleration of the development of this ecosystem, which was already in motion, but I think the Bloomberg administration helped make things happen. So one interesting thing is maybe to wait a year or two and see how Mayor de Blasio does. And if I think things are so much there's so much momentum, they're sort of hard to screw things up. I don't think anybody expects anything majorly positive to happen from the administration, but hopefully we'll continue in the same direction, and maybe in a couple of years we can do a second edition of it and do an update based on that.
Well, other than a sequel, what about a movie version of this book? Have you given that any thought?
Only if you star in it.
Well, we've given it some thought, and so I didn't get the chance to star in it. I wasn't selected, just like I wasn't selected to be interviewed for the book. But I thought we had a few thoughts. Why don't we roll the film and take a look?
In Silicon Alley, everything moves fast. The technology, the CEOs, the term sheets. The valuations get bigger, the angel funds multiply, and everyone is trying to buy into the next big thing. Hello, gorgeous. It's a tough market out there.
You offered you an uncapped note? This guy's fucking out of his mind.
You an angel? I'll give you a 10% discount.
Oh, you're getting it.
Welcome to Ashton's. Can I take your order?
Yeah, give me a double wild turkey meat.
Up there at the office?
I got a BC beatdown.
I read that Brian Cohen said that people are doing startups just to get laid on Friday night. Right. Founding partner of DC Fund is the way to go.
With thorough GPs, an intern, and an iPad by your side, sometimes you can slow down just long enough to close a big deal.
I think it's an excellent start, and I think we need to add to the casting, and I think there should be a role for you.
You'll find a spot for me in this one. So do you think the current tech activity in New York City is sustainable? Or you think it will continue to grow?
I think so, especially we have a movie about it. If you read, oh, there we go.
County partner with DC Fund is waiting out.
So with your fellow GPs and interns and an iPad by your side, sometimes you can slow down just long to close the big deal.
That's all right.
So, no, I think to answer your question about the ecosystem, I think it's at this point it's something that's already launched, established as roots. I mean, it's really we go through multiple, at least 2 or 3 generations of entrepreneurs, and that's what really makes things be established. And so it's New York is about a third of Silicon Valley in 2013 in terms of activities, in terms of capital invested in the IT sector. It's bigger than Boston in the IT sector. So we're already at a stage where it's going to be something that's not going to go away that easily. And I think we can only build on it and make it even more successful.
Did you have any interest?
And law firms like Reitler can really make a difference.
Other than having a lengthy interview with David Rose and not interviewing me, did you have any interesting experiences in the meeting entrepreneurs or VCs? Any other stories stand out? People you've talked with?
Well, I think one, well, there's several, and that stand out there. I remember. I mean, I think one comment that sort of stands out that I keep mentioning is I think I was talking to a young entrepreneur that just moved to New York, and I asked him, well, why did you move to New York to start your company? He said, well, it's a great city. It's safe, it's clean, and there are a lot of friendly people. For somebody who's been here for many years, to hear that New York is people move to New York because it's safe and clean and the friendly people is sort of a change. And the fact that there are not that many people laughing here means that a lot of them have come to New York recently. But there's a lot of interesting stories, including talking to Chris Eiferman and how he started Meetup, and which was really started from the rubble of 9/11 as a way for people to meet and create community with folks, and how the idea came actually while he was watching the second plane crash into the towers. A lot of good stories, some touching stories too.
So, other than read my book, what advice would you give a budding entrepreneur?
I would say that life is short. Make the best of it. Be good to people. Don't work with assholes because it's not worth it, and life is too short for that. Work with good law firms like Reitler here.
Don't stop.
But if you're a young entrepreneur that is trying to make it in New York or to build your company in New York, there's a lot of people that are good people that are willing to help. A lot of organizations. Mentors you can find, so just be out there talking to people and finding the right ones to work with you. Some of them are good investors too, and but importantly, good lawyers can make a difference.
We're going to take some questions now, but just a program note: Alessandro and Dave Kirpin, who you heard from during our 5-on-5, will be signing copies of their books for the first, I think, 20 lucky people in line, and they'll be set up right outside the casino room. So please stop by and get your copy of those books. Does anyone have any questions? You want to ask Alessandro? One chance to ask the author. John.
In general, well, I could ask you in general or in New York. Mike, in New York, okay. Well, what I'm interested in, and I think there is going to be a lot of activity in New York in the coming years, is a whole area around connected devices and machine learning. Now, this sounds like it's something that's more West Coasty, but when it comes to data science and big data and machine learning and so on, there is a lot of activity going on in at Columbia, NYU, Cornell, that is going to be relevant to this. So I'm spending a lot of time talking to companies that are in that space. And there are a few now, there will be a lot more in the future.
Yeah, Rami.
Okay, so if I can repeat the question was had to do with what kind of companies can do the best in New York versus the West Coast and so on. Historically, just like in any new community, entrepreneurial community, I think what you see first are opportunities that are based on industries that already exist. New York is lucky in that respect because we have some major industries like financial services, like media, advertising, fashion, and so on. They are leaders in the country. So a lot of the companies that were born first were companies were based on those technologies. So if you want to go back to even before the 90s, Bloomberg, you can argue, was the first startup in New York of success. And that's a financial services company. In the 90s, you had DoubleClick, which was an advertising company. And these companies are all born because of there is domain expertise in the region that one can take advantage of. I think in the future, as we were just saying before, is I think there will be opportunities that maybe are more technology oriented or based maybe on what has been learned throughout these first couple of waves of startups that we've seen. So my expectation is that we'll see more technologies like what we were talking about before around big data, machine learning, connected devices. But even in other areas, there is a push, for instance, to do more work in biotech, which is not an area that I look at, but it's certainly interesting.
Yeah, right here.
What's your understanding of the new tax-free zones, and what's your opinion of those in New York?
Well, it's that's a New York State thing. So you have so that's Governor Cuomo that has been establishing this, launching this initiative to start tax-free zones. I think one of the first ones is in Buffalo and then other parts of the state. I think it's a good idea. I don't know that that entrepreneurs though will move to a certain location because there is a tax-free zone. I think entrepreneurs move somewhere because they're looking for a good place where they want to live. They're looking for talent, and in some cases they may move somewhere because there are customers. Okay, and I think a tax-free area is a nice to have if you can also have the rest of what I just mentioned. So it has to be seen how well it works. I mean, I think it's a good idea, but I would like to see it working first and see some success.
I think we have time for one last question. Is that David over there?
Oh, hi, Ed. Thank you. Quick question. There's a big debate that's sort of ongoing about New York vis-a-vis Silicon Valley. So how many years or decades is New York behind the Valley? And number two is that, the second part question is that you saw Mark Cuban write this last week, is that he dislikes the Valley because its primary product is its exits. And so can you bring color to that around maybe that issue with New York, is that we lack the exits to compete with the Valley?
Are you an investor? Or?
Entrepreneur.
Okay, but you like the exits too, right? Or not? It's hard to tell how I don't like this, to look at this as a competition, Silicon Valley versus New York versus Boston and so on. I think they're different things. The culture of New York is a lot different than Silicon Valley. There's probably different types of entrepreneurs, different type of companies. It's how far are we behind? I don't know. New York today is, if you look at information technology, is about 30% of Silicon Valley in terms of companies started and dollars invested. If you looked at 1960, Silicon Valley was about a third of Boston in terms of with the same measures, and then a decade later they passed Boston and they became the biggest place ever for technology startups. So I'm not saying that it's going to happen the same way here, unlikely, but it's it's hard to tell. I mean, I think what we need to worry about is to build a healthy ecosystems and great companies and great success stories. In terms of, it is true that sometimes in Silicon Valley there is a tendency to hype things a little bit too much and just worry about packaging things and getting them out there. People have made a lot of money doing that, though, and so it's hard to stop them from doing that. I think sometimes New York lacks a little bit of that. So there is something to be learned there. I'm not saying you have to go overboard, but that level of marketing is sometimes, in good measure, is a good thing. So we can only learn from the masters.
Okay, well, thank you, Alessandro.